Good evening. Welcome to this evening's edition of the Vision Root video blog. I'm your host, Richard Urban. I'm coming to you from historic Harpers Ferry, West Virginia. So tonight's topic is, are we witnessing the end times and the role of the Lord of the Second Advent? I'd like to begin with a reading from Revelation chapter 11. I was given a reed like a measuring rod and was told, go and measure the temple of God and the altar with its worshippers. But exclude the outer court and do not measure it, because it has been given to the Gentiles. They will trample on the holy city for 42 months. And I will appoint my 2 witnesses, and they will prophesy for 1,260 days, clothed in sackcloth. They are the 2 olive trees and the 2 lampstands, and they stand before the Lord of the earth. If anyone tries to harm them, fire comes from their mouths and devours their enemies. This is how anyone who wants to harm them must die. They have power to shut up the heavens so that it will not rain during the time they are prophesying, and they have power to turn the waters into blood and to strike the earth with every kind of plague as often as they want. Now, when they finish their testimony, the beast that comes up from the abyss will attack them and overpower and kill them. Their bodies will lie in the public square of the great city, which is figuratively called Sodom and Egypt, where also the Lord was crucified. For 3.5 days, some from every people, tribe, and language and nation will gaze on their bodies and refuse them burial. The inhabitants of the earth will gloat over them and will celebrate by sending each other gifts, because these 2 prophets had tormented those who live on the earth. But after 3.5 days, the breath of life from God entered them, and they stood on their feet, and terror struck those who saw them. Then they heard a loud voice from heaven saying to them, come up here, and they went up to heaven in a cloud, while their enemies looked on. At that very hour there was a severe earthquake, and 1/10 of the city collapsed. 7,000 people were killed in the earthquake, and the survivors were terrified and gave glory to the God of heaven. The second woe is past, and the third woe is coming. Well, that's a very interesting scripture, to say the least. And we're talking about, are we seeing the end times? And what is the nature of the Lord of the second coming? Well, I believe that, many of you know I'm a unificationist, a follower of Reverend Sun Myung Moon. And Father Moon died in 2012, but he appointed his youngest son, Pastor Hyungjin Moon, as the successor and heir, along with his wife, Yana Lee Moon. However, Reverend Moon's widow, Han, has not honored that wish of Reverend Moon, and is now saying that she is a prepared Eve. And I was recently visiting Massachusetts, and what she's saying very much reminds me of not just a prepared Eve, but she is the second coming of Christ. And I'll link here to 2 previous videos I did, instead of just repeating that. You can watch those. But that she's the one who's coming instead of Reverend Moon as the second coming, which is kind of problematic, since she's supposed to be the bride of Christ, and Christ comes as a man bringing the seed of God. And we especially understand that as unificationists. So this is really a big problem. And it also reminds me of Mother Ann of the Shakers. I was visiting Massachusetts recently, and Mother Ann, I didn't know this, but I was looking into history. She believed she was the second coming of Christ. And an interesting thing about the Shaker movement is that they didn't procreate. They didn't marry. They didn't, have marriage. And so therefore the movement's basically died out and shut down. I think there's 1 or 2 living members, but they're not accepting membership anymore. So I'm thinking that Mrs. Moon is repeating that same mistake, not realizing, I didn't know how Mother Ann thought she could be the second coming of Christ when it needed to be a man bringing the seed of God. And Mother Moon seems to be making the very same mistake. So I do believe we are in these end times. And what about this prophecy I just read from Revelation? Well, the 42 months comes up about 3 times if you read the book of Revelation. 42 months from what? Well, my Christian friends might be wondering, what would the 42 months be measured from? But as unificationists, we have a yardstick as believers in the second coming of Christ in Reverend Moon. And basically, Reverend Moon had declared that on January 13th, 2013, solar, which was February 22nd, lunar of 2013, there was supposed to be a foundation day of God's kingdom. Unfortunately, Father Moon passed before that day, and on that day, instead of lifting up Father Moon and his work and her role as a bride of Christ, Hak John lifted herself up, just thereby committing a great abomination and heresy. So, I believe that the clock of judgment started ticking then, and that the 42 months would mean that's 3.5 years, that it's coming up, ending just around now, August 20th, give and take a few days, August 22nd. So, and August 19th is the first anniversary of when Pastor Hyung Moon, on the third anniversary of Father Moon's ascension, or we call it Seonghwa, had an anniversary, and he received a crown from his brother Kukjin Moon. So who are these two prophets that we see in Revelation? We see very, very interestingly in Revelation that these prophets give their testimony, the two witnesses. Well, I believe the two witnesses are Pastor Hyung Jin Moon and Cook Jin Moon, who's his brother and is supporting his brother, and who is actually one who crowned his brother on August 19th. It'll be a year ago. So what does it mean when they say they were witnessing for 3.5 days? Well, I think the days actually means years here. Sometimes the Bible does that, uses like the earth was created in 6 days, but we know it was not actually 6 years or 6 epochs. So here I think it's 3.5 years. In fact, it says right here they were prophesied for 1,260 days, which is actually 3.5 years. And they'd be clothed in sackcloth. Very interestingly, Pastor Moon, Hyung Jin Moon, covered the unification symbol with sackcloth last year about this time because of the persecution of the Family Federation, who wanted to sue them. And by the way, I've said that if the Family Federation wants to sue Pastor Hyung Jin Moon, they definitely need to sue me, as I'm displaying the symbol on my website, visionroot.org. I haven't heard anything yet, but I'm definitely glad for them to sue me if they want to sue Pastor Moon. Anyway, so basically it says they're shooting fire from their mouth if anyone comes against them. Well, they are definitely shooting fire, and the word is a fire, that's for sure, judging and dividing good from evil. So I believe that definitely we are in the end times, and every day you see a lot of atrocities and crazy things happening. Why are these things happening? I mean, you could surmise a lot of different reasons. Our nation has definitely gone against God, has promoted all kinds of immorality, the breakdown of the family, homosexuality, abortion, godlessness of every kind, corruption and wickedness in high places. So we see all these kind of things. So I think God is, bringing in his new era. And also, I have to throw in here, I think Trump is a providentially chosen figure. And, I just listened to Democratic convention tonight, and I would say, I was chanting something too. It was, about wicked Hillary, Yeah, I mean, really, this woman is wicked, and she, should run for prison, but definitely not for president of the United States, considering all the criminal things she's done in Benghazi and with the emails and all. Now we see all those other emails from the Democratic Committee and so on. But I digress a little here. But anyway, I think all of this craziness and even this presidential race has to do with the end times. Even the guy's name, Trump. Some people, prophets, say that's an analogy for the trumpets of God being sounded. So do please keep your heads up. Do have some extra food on hand. There's an excellent preparation course called Preparedness Peace I'm studying now. Do pray and seek God's guidance and find out about these end times. I think, this time in August and coming up the rest of the year is a very, very important time. I pray that God can guide this nation and guide us in the right direction. And I would say if you would like to have a criminal as president of the United States, do vote for Hillary Clinton. If not, I strongly recommend Donald Trump. He's a good man. He's a decent man who truly has the interests of our nation at hand. So I hope you enjoyed this, my opinion on the words of Revelation. I hope you found it meaningful, and I pray that you can uphold the words of Jesus Christ and also the tradition of Reverend Sun Myung Moon, as he honored the words of Jesus and as the second coming of Jesus. And thank you for listening, and have a great evening. Until next time, this is Richard Urban signing off from historic Harpers Ferry, West Virginia. Good night.